Hello and welcome to the editorial analysis of the Hindu. Today we shall be discussing the editorial of the 10th of July. But before we begin, please take a look at one of our workshops that we are conducting. It will be a free workshop on the 20th of July at 10:30 a.m. Here we are calling one of our students, Dr. Shrikant, who has scored an All India rank of 680. So this is a good opportunity for all the beginners to come and meet us at our institution. For those of you who are our offline students, offline subscribers, all those of you, we will provide you an opportunity with the recording of this particular workshop, which will be available on our YouTube channel. So that's about this particular program. Starting with our discussion, coming to the first article, Going Electric. Now basically the context of this article is with regards to the electric vehicles. Now electric vehicles is going to be one of the most important topics. Even if this is not a direct question, it can directly come as a question that what is the feasibility of India shifting to electric vehicles? That kind of an analysis can be there. But for the environment section, you must bring out this idea of electric vehicles, because this is a program that is very, very dear to the government. And in this regard, the government is having huge amount of stakes and investments. So that is why it is important. Coming to the issues which have been discussed in the editorial, first and foremost, it discusses that the union budget has given a lot of consideration to the electric vehicles. The union budget has largely focused upon the importance of electric vehicles, the need for making a transition to electric vehicles. There has been a stress on some tax incentives which are going to be given to those who will be the early adopters of the electric vehicles. So this is what is important here. And also this is going to reflect electric vehicles. It is being planned that almost the entire transportation, the public transportation, is what is going to be changed, or it is going to be converted into the electric vehicles till the year 2022. So this is the target that has been set up by the government. Also, income tax deduction is what is going to be given on loans for the purchase of electric vehicles. So these are the plans that have been proposed in the union budget, which clearly states that electrification of our vehicles is one of the top priorities and top policies for the current government. So this is what is important. Another thing what is important here is the aspect of why electric vehicles or shifting or making a transition to electric vehicles is what is inevitable. This is inevitable because of the poor air quality in our urban centers. Delhi is one of the most polluted metropolitans of the world. Many cities of India are highly polluted. So in that particular context, it will be good if the transportation is what is made electric, as air pollution is what is going to be reduced. Noise pollution is another challenge. A public health challenge to health is what is taking place because of pollution. All of this is what can be controlled vis-a-vis the use of electric vehicles. So that is what is important. Next, what is important here is with regards to the Niti Aayog. Now basically what is important here is that even the Niti Aayog is stressing on the need for shifting to electric vehicles. The goal of shifting to electric vehicles requires a deadline and market-driven approach, is what is the idea that has been proposed by Niti Aayog. So Niti Aayog is proposing that if there is a transition that has to be made, then some deadline is what has to be fixed by the government. Some fixed date has to be established by the government so that all the other vehicles can make a transition up till this particular date. So that is what is the idea by Niti Aayog. It is also favoring a market-driven approach. Another thing that has been discussed here is the need for a realistic time frame. Now basically what the editorial is saying, that all the scooters, all the motorcycles, all the three-wheeler carriages, and at least the public vehicles are what should be transitioned into the electric vehicles first. So a realistic time frame is what is going to be required, because this is a huge number of vehicles that actually have to make that transition. So that is what has been talked about. Next, what is important is the scheme FAME that you have to talk about whenever you are talking about electric vehicles. This is the faster adoption and manufacturing of electric vehicles, or for that matter hybrid vehicles also. So this is the full form of FAME, faster adoption and manufacturing of electric vehicles. This is the scheme of the government of India vis-a-vis electric vehicles, and this has a plan of rupees 10,000 crores. So this is what you should know. This is an ambitious program of the government to give a fillip to the commercial vehicles. And also what is important is that this also aims at charging stations which is required for electric vehicles. And this brings us to the sixth point, which is the most important analysis. The only major roadblock for transitioning to electric vehicles is the need for a charging infrastructure. In this context, what you need to know that this is the most limiting as well as the most challenging factor. What is required here is that public charging stations be set up. There is a need for fast charging stations at parking lots be available. Also, what is required is that there should be some retrofitting of fuel outlets that should be available for cars that are making a transition into electric vehicles. Also, what is required here is that snapping or changing of batteries is what is required. If a person is traveling for a long distance, then in that particular case, it might not happen that one battery can sustain the travel. So in that particular case, what might happen is that this person might look into a swapping of battery. So there should be such centers available at different places where batteries are what can be changed and they can be swapped. So that is what has been talked about, especially in the case of commercial commercial vehicles. This is what is going to be required. For example, trucks, these carry loads for huge amounts of distance. So for them, swapping of batteries is going to be a requirement, is going to be an infrastructure which is going to be required. Also, manufacturing is what is envisaged under FAME. So here, the manufacturing of lithium battery production is what needs to be increased. Solar charging infrastructure is what needs to be focused upon. So these are some ideas that have been offered in this particular article, and these are good ideas. Try and make a note of these ideas. Use them whenever opportunity is. You have a scope for discussing about electric vehicles. You must use these ideas. So that is the relevance of this particular article. Coming to the next article, the malice of malnutrition. Now, the context of this article is the malice of malnutrition. The context is more appropriately is a report that has just come out. This is the Food and Nutrition Security Analysis for India of the year 2019. This report has come out. This was what was authored by the government of India as well as the World Food Programme. So this is an important report, and this report, for that matter, it punches the image of India as a nation of prosperity. There is no doubt that India has made immense amount of economic progress that cannot be denied. India is not the India that it was many years ago, but definitely India still has a long way to go ahead, primarily in the context of social issues like malnutrition being one. Despite the fact that one part of India is extremely rich, the other part continues to struggle for one day's square meal. So that is one challenge that is arising, especially in the case of children. Malnutrition is one of the highest in the world. So this is what has been talked about in this particular editorial. It also raises some moral and ethical question, this particular report, because after 70 years of independence, if hundreds of millions of people in India are still living in poverty, then this is what is a cause of concern and something that the nation needs to churn about. So that is what is important. Another issue is that what are the causes for this continuation of malnutrition? Here the issue is that the economic growth has been very rapid, but the focus should have been on the reduction of poverty, but that is clearly what has not happened. Despite the fact that we have enough food to export, we are not able to remove the issue or the malice of malnutrition. Despite having abundance of food grains which are being lost to damage or withering each year, still a large population of us is what is sleeping hungry. So the problem here is that despite the fact that we have multiplicity of programs by the government, we have rapid economic growth, still it is that malnutrition in the country is what is continuing. So what is this primary reason is that there is mismanagement by the government. First is that reason, and the second issue that has been discussed here is the vicious circle. Now, what is this vicious circle? This vicious circle is that there is poverty, and because of poverty, what is happening is that there is malnutrition. Now, on the contrary, what happens is that because of malnutrition, what happens is that the development of children is what is impacted. This lowers their productivity in schools, this lowers their learning ability, and as a result of this lower productivity, lower learning ability, poor health, all of these contribute to further resulting in them being poor. And the cycle of poverty and malnutrition is what will continue again. And this is the vicious circle which is set up in India, where one is the cause of another, and as a result of which the circle is what is not being broken. So that is what has been talked about. Another analysis that has been brought about here is with regards to the malnourished women. Now, it is primarily that only malnourished women are giving birth to malnourished children. What is happening in India is that women are not empowered. Largely, women are getting married at a very young age, often sometimes at the age of 15. So what is happening is that there is a lot of anemia in women and girls at this point of time. They are in their adolescent age, they are in the teenage, and they are suffering from anemia and other deficiencies. And what happens is when pregnancy happens at this young an age, then that kind of a woman, being herself weak, is not able to produce children or give birth to children who are healthy. And this again sets up a vicious circle where the child is malnourished. So that is what is the discussion here. That is what has been analyzed. Further, the malnourished children, and amongst them the female children, will themselves become anemic, and they will themselves be malnourished at another young age, and then again get married and again have children. So this issue, this vicious circle, is what is something that is gripping India. So that is what has been talked about in this particular article. Some data is what has been offered to us, which is important. First and foremost, you should know that India is what is home to the largest number of malnourished children in the world. There is chronic malnutrition, which has decreased from 42.5% to 35.7% only as of now. Anemia in young children is what has decreased from 69.5% to 58.5% since independence. So these are some figures what have been given, that yes, there has been some progress, but not adequate enough. So this is what is important. And statements of these kind, that India is home to the largest number of malnourished children in the world, are what are opener statements. I have always talked about this. If you do not understand that what should be an ideal introduction to your answers, try and use these kind of statements. They give it good impression. Next, what is important here is the Poshan Abhiyan. This is the program that the government has started. Now, basically, this is the National Nutrition Mission, which reduces stunting by approximately, which aims at reducing stunting by 2% in a particular year. So this is the target of the Poshan Abhiyan. It aims at bringing down the proportion of stunted children in the population to by approximately 25% by the year 2022. So this is what you should know. These are some data vis-a-vis this particular program. The Poshan Abhiyan is going to be an important one that you must talk about whenever you talk about malnutrition. Also, what you should know is about some states which are more suffering from malnutrition. In these states, the problem is much more as compared to the other states. These include states like Jharkhand, Bihar, Madhya Pradesh, Gujarat, Maharashtra. So these states are what have become important whenever you are talking. Targeted approach in these particular states is what is going to be important. So this is one thing that you should keep in mind when you are discussing the context of states. Also, what is required is here, or what is the issue here, is that of social and economic exclusion. Not only is malnutrition and undernourishment a problem of India, what is also important is that this is what is at a higher level in some particular pockets. For example, 40% of malnutrition is what is there in the SCs as well as in the STs, and 40% is what is there in the OBC children. So clearly it is showing that this is what is having a relationship with the social and economic exclusion of these castes in the Indian caste system. So that is one important analysis. Another important issue here is the analysis that has been offered by Mr. Amartya Sen, Dr. Amartya Sen for that matter. He is a Nobel laureate from India. In his theory, he says that famines are what are not caused by the shortages of food. Rather, they are what are caused by the inadequate access to food, which is what is impeded by social factors, administrative factors, economic factors, or due to the neglect of the government, which means that resources are what are enough. It is only the distribution of resources which is flawed, and this distribution is what is flawed due to multiple factors: social, economic, administrative, government policies. All of these are the factors which are resulting in flawed distribution. This is what we have discussed. Also, India is one country that is exporting food to other countries, and it will be a big shame for India if its own people are what are undernourished. So that is one important analysis here. Lastly, this editorial gives us a metaphor, and these kind of metaphors are what I would recommend. Try and bring out these metaphors in your essay papers or in your answers. They give a direct impact, they have a direct hit on the reader, and they will give a very, very good impression. For example, the metaphor that has been talked about is discussed in this part of the editorial. It is said that one part of the country lives in a 21st century economy where they are ordering exotic cuisines over their apps, and another part is still struggling with the most ancient of realities in India, finding enough to eat to tide them over till the next day is what is their agenda. So clearly this is showing that there are two parts of India. One that is using apps, exotic food, or ordering exotic food over apps like Swiggy, but other part of India is still struggling for one meal a day, and that is what is the biggest challenge for this country. To cross this bridge is one of the biggest challenges that India is facing in the current times, and you should talk about these kind of social issues wherever you have an opportunity. UPSC is one exam which will reward you for such kind of an opinion, and social issues are something that are dear to UPSC. Whenever a social issue analysis is what is made by a candidate, the candidate is definitely rewarded higher. That is my personal experience. So from that perspective, this article becomes very, very relevant for your general studies means paper 1, as well as for your essay paper. That is where the relevance is. So that's about this particular article, and that's about our discussion for today. There are no other articles, but before we end, please take a look at our mains test series, which we will be starting from the 20th of July. We will be conducting 12 tests, which will also include 10 essay tests are also going to be there. This is our test series, which will be both online as well as offline. For the offline students, you can attempt our test. You will have to send us a scanned copy, and we will check your test and provide you a feedback on the phone. So that is about this particular test series. These are our contact details. All those of you who are interested, please do get in touch with us. So that's about this particular program, and that's about our discussion today. I thank you all for watching the video.